morning, everyone. I want to invite you, please, to find your seats. I know you've already been reminded to please silence your cell phones. I want to remind you again to please do that. And I will practice what I preach. We still have a little bit of that buzzing, Joseph. I don't know if that's something that you can tweak. So welcome everyone, Bruchim Habaim in Hebrew. Welcome to the Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center for the city of Aventura's official and annual commemoration of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It was 79 years ago, this coming Saturday, on January 27th, 1945, that the Allies liberated the largest Nazi concentration camp, Auschwitz-Birkenau. And this day is marked all over the world to remember the victims of the Holocaust, among them 6 million Jews, and to promote Holocaust education and awareness. My name is Rabbi Jonathan Birkin. I'm one of the rabbis of the synagogue, together with my colleague, Rabbi Guido Cohen. It is my honor to welcome the students and the faculty of the Don Sofer Aventura High School, Principal Jeffrey McKee, our honored Holocaust survivor and special guest speaker, Zoltan Blau, our mayor, Howard Weinberg, our assistant city manager, Brian Biguis, and the entire Aventura City Commission, I believe, Dr. Linda Marks, Rachel Saltzman, Amit Bloom, Billy Joel, Michael Stern, Paul Cruz, Chief of Police, Michael Bentalila. We are gathered here today in the Ida and Harry Sofer Sanctuary, named for the beloved late parents of Don Sofer, the philanthropist and real estate developer whose visionary leadership led to the creation of this city of excellence and whose name your school proudly bears. It is always good to see you, Mr. Sofer. He's here on the Bima in his spiritual home. Let's give him a round of applause and thank him for all he does for our community and our congregation. It's also wonderful to have with us today our founding chairman of this synagogue, a Holocaust survivor himself, Mr. William Landa, here also on the Bima, and his wife Carol. It was Mr. Landa's tireless efforts and personal philanthropy that made this synagogue, the Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, a reality. We simply would not be here without Mr. Landa's leadership, and once again, we are grateful to you for all that you did and continue to do for us all. One more round of applause for our two leaders. I would like to also thank the volunteer parents of the Don Sofer Aventura High School who worked closely with my colleague Rabbi Guido Cohen to put this meaningful program together, to create it and to continue to offer it. Gimel Bentis, Diane Gleit, Brittany Befferman, and Nira Bessenblatt. Let's give them a round of applause as we are grateful for their leadership and their efforts. Today we will learn about the Holocaust, not from a book, not from a movie, not from a historical document, but we will be privileged to hear firsthand testimony from someone, Zoltan Blau, who survived the Holocaust himself, and then, as you may also learn, went to Israel and fought in Israel's War of Independence in 1948. Every Shabbat here in this sanctuary, we are blessed to pray with many Holocaust survivors who went on to live long, fulfilling lives with growing families of their own. It is their spirit and their zest for life that is always an inspiration. And even though we're going to hear the personal testimony today about events that happened decades ago, it is very important that we not think of Holocaust education as only history. Of course, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, but we don't need to go back in time or even to Europe to find modern-day examples of anti-Semitism, of racism, of dehumanization, and all forms of hatred in both word and violent deed. Some of you may know that it was just over 5 years ago, on October 27, 2018, in the city of Pittsburgh, that a rabid anti-Semitic murderer entered the Tree of Life Synagogue and shot and killed 11 innocent Jews, massacring them while they prayed on Shabbat. And while shooting, that man shouted, "All Jews must die." That synagogue was my childhood synagogue. I grew up there. My father was the rabbi there. And the people who died there were people that I knew when I was younger than you. It was the deadliest attack against Jews in the history of the United States of America. It is hard to believe that nearly 80 years after the Holocaust, someone could hate Jews so much in this day and age to do what that man did. But then again, while we are waiting for the anti-Semitic data and statistics of 2023 to be calculated, let me just tell you a little bit about 2022. There were 3,697 acts of anti-Semitism in the United States that included assault, harassment, vandalism, and it represents, for the third year in a row, a record number of incidents since the Anti-Defamation League began tracking them in 1979. This represents an increase of 36% from the previous year. Attacks against Jewish institutions, including JCCs and synagogues, up 26%. Incidents at kindergarten through 12th grade schools increased 49%. Incidents on college campuses rose 41%. Assaults, considered the most serious type of incident because it involves person-to-person physical violence triggered by anti-Semitic animus, increased more than 167%. Harassment's up 29%, anti-Semitic vandalism up 51%. You may recall that last year, Kanye West said on television that people should, quote, "stop dissing the Nazis," and that what Jews, quote, "are about is making money." Before that, on Twitter, he posted an image of a Nazi swastika infused with the Jewish Star of David and wrote in the middle of one night when he woke up, he is, quote, "going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." And of course, since October 7th, the statistics have risen dramatically by over 400%. If you find these stories shocking, you should. But they pale in comparison to what you will soon hear from Zoltan Blau. But these stories are happening now in more and more places, more and more frequently. That is the honest, harsh truth. Anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred and racism are on the rise, and they don't always take the form of shootings or vandalism or beatings. It can be in the form of a comment you hear in school, maybe even disguised as a joke. Something about Jews and money, or Jewish power, or maybe a Jewish nose. It can be an assumption someone makes about someone else because of the color of their skin, or the country they come from, or the language they speak, or the religion they practice. The ongoing fight against all forms of bigotry, prejudice, discrimination, bias, and intolerance is what we learn to better do when we learn about the Holocaust. It is a fight we all must fight every single day of our lives. It is often said about the Holocaust that while it took only a small number of actual perpetrators, in order for it to happen, it relied on large populations of good people who just stayed silent, remained quiet, looked the other way, chose not to speak up or speak out. We hope that today will inspire you in the ongoing, modern, continuous fight against anti-Semitism, racism, hatred, bigotry. May all of you be inspired to never be silent in the face of injustice, and may we never again allow an atrocity like the Holocaust to happen again to anyone, anywhere. So at this time, I would like to welcome a very special and dear friend of this congregation who prays with us each and every Saturday morning. So if you like what you hear and you are inspired by him, come join us, 10 a.m., any Saturday morning. Zoltan sits right over there, and he would be welcome. He would be happy to welcome you and to give you a hug. Let's join together in a rousing round of applause for Zoltan Blau, for his courage to be with us this morning and to tell his story. Joseph, a little more, we're going to get him to do more on this one, and Robin will not be a little more on this one, a little more on the P one, more on the monitors, so that Mr. Solfer is meant to hear as well. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
Morning, Sultan.
Good morning.
Good to see you here.
And I'm happy to be here.
We are happy to have you here. We're happy to have you at home. This is your spiritual home. So let's start by sharing something about your childhood. Where were you born? To whom? How was life back then?
Hold the microphone close.
Can I start with something else?
You can do whatever you want.
Mr. Elon Musk, the richest person in the world, who owns Tesla, you know where he was this week? He was in Auschwitz. And when he toured Auschwitz, after the tour, he told the journalist that I was very, very naive about anti-Semitism, and I was very naive what people could do to other people. So I am here because I know a little bit about anti-Semitism and also a little bit about Auschwitz, because I was there at age 13, not a visitor. I was a prisoner there. And I saw the full operation. I saw the chimney. I was very close to the fire. And in today's world, where TikTok and Instagram and Mr. Elon Musk's X network is so much things being said there, so much falsehood, so much distortion, that I'm very happy to be here to tell my story.
Thank you, Zoltan.
Hope I did not.
No, Zoltan, you are the boss this morning.
Okay.
But back to the beginning, so that we know where you come from, your parents, where you were born, siblings, what life was like until your bar mitzvah age.
I was born December 17, 1930, in Hungary, in a small village, to a Hasidic family, 7 siblings. I was the second youngest child in the family. And Hungary was an ally of Germany. Germany not occupied Hungary. So the Jews had all the restrictions, difficult to make a living, and they were fired from their positions if they had government positions or universities. So it was very, very difficult. And we knew all about the killing fields that was going on in Poland, in Ukraine, and we were terrified what's going to happen to us, but days were going on, and somehow we were still in our home in Hungary, But everything happened in 1944 when the German army marched into Hungary. And with the army came the notorious Adolf Eichmann. And he organized, within 2 weeks' time, he organized all the transports to send all Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz for the final solution, which meant to eliminate them.
How did you hear of the notice that you needed to be transported to Auschwitz? How did you know this was happening? You're 13
Well,
years old.
nobody know about Auschwitz. I'm sorry, I'm nervous a little bit. So. Nobody know. We know that Jews are being killed left and right and being taken to the labor camps and getting killed during the war between the Russian and German forces on the front line, but nobody know about Auschwitz.
But after the invasion, you're home
Yes,
in
after
difficult
the
situations.
invasion-
What happens that you know you need?
Yes, within 2 weeks after the invasion, it was spring 1944, and it was Passover, the last day of Passover, at Easter time, you March, approximately March, 4 o'clock on the window, somebody was knocking on the window, "Mister, get up and get yourself ready, because by 10 o'clock in the morning you have to be in the schoolyard assembled with 15 pounds of personal belongings. And if you don't show up there, the police is going to be here and it's going to be an ugly way of removing you from your home." Of course, Jews were very abiding, when it came to police, we were very scared. And we did that. And I remember that my mother was panicky because we didn't have a piece of bread to take with us because it was Passover.
I want to make sure everyone heard. He didn't have a
Yeah.
piece of bread to take with him because it was Passover.
So, but we showed up 10 o'clock in the schoolyard, and within a short time, the elderly and the sick were transported with horse and buggy, and the able kids and able people had to walk about 12 miles or 14 miles to nearest town. They put up in a big synagogue, a big shul, and that was our temporary home. But after 3 or 4 days, the shul was filled up to such an extent because they were gathering all the Jews from the surrounding areas, and they transferred us to a brick factory. The brick factory is just a roof with standing on poles, no rooms, empty, and families, women, children, everybody were piled in there, and it was really horrible, horrible condition. Early spring, very cold, very windy days, and we spent there approximately 2.5 weeks. One morning, of course, very little food, no sanitation. One morning they announced, "No, we're going to march to the railroad station." They announced that anybody that still has any personal belongings, jewelry or money, they have to give it up. Otherwise, if don't, they have, consequences. And we arrived to the train station, and were the empty cattle cars. And they started load us into the empty cattle cars, 90 to 95 people to a cattle car. And it was terrible, terrible. No room to move. People were fainting, elderly people were sick. It was really horrible, horrible, horrible conditions. And I remember when they closed the door of that cattle car that has a very harsh sound to it and has a latch outside that they close it. When I saw a documentary not long ago, they had showed that the sound was still ringing in my ear from those days. It was so harsh, and we felt we are doomed. This is no way we will ever get out of alive from this. But anyway, Auschwitz from my town was approximately the distance from here to Orlando. It would have taken 5 was 6 hours normally. It took us 2.5 days that journey. No water, no sanitation, panic, people were dying in the cattle car. So after 2.5 days...
Are you still with your family? Is that what you were going to ask? Are you...
With my father, my mother, my older sister, and a younger sister. Because the rest of 5 of my siblings were much older. They were indifferent, they were out of the house, they were not in the same little town. They lived in Budapest, most of them. And so finally it came to a halt, a station. They picked up a little boy to look at because the window is very high in those cattle cars. What station? It says Birkenau, which was the German name of that. But that was the train station for Auschwitz. So we arrived, they opened the cattle car doors, and the Gestapo SS were there with the dogs waiting, and with the bitades, carrying long sticks, and yelling, able men line up one line, women and children the other line, and a railroad track was separating the two lines. And of course I line up with my mother and my younger sister and older sister. As we were standing in line, somebody who was working in the railroad station, who was already a veteran inmate, Jewish inmate there, approached my mother and asked her in Yiddish, how old is the boy? And my mother said that he's 13 years old, he was just bar mitzvah. He says, no. He has to go to the men's line, and if somebody's going to ask him how old he is, he should say he's 18 years old, and he's strong, and he's willing to work, and it's going to be a lot better for the family. He gave a whole story, and he was endangering his life, because if some SS soldiers would see him talking to the newcomers, that was a real no-no, that they would take his number and he would be only punished.
So why did he have to tell you to say that you were older? What happened to the younger kids?
Okay. Because he knew the process, what was going on. He was there, and we didn't know nothing. And he was trying to save maybe some of the kids. And he told me that it's going to be a selection later on, and they're going to ask you, you say 18 years old.
So what happens to mothers with younger kids?
Okay, I want to go back to the line and find my father. But the line was moving already. I couldn't find my father. So I wound up at the end of the line. And there are a few other kids, teenage kids between the age of 12 or 14. They probably was pulled out in the same way from their mothers. And sure enough, we got to the point where the selection was. And that was the selection, the guy that was called the Angel of Death, Dr. Mengele. And with the point of his finger, he decided left or right. So I don't know if it was left or right, but that was between the living or the dead. So anybody that went in one direction was the crematoria, and the other direction, you wind up between the living. And that was the selection. Just with the, and they didn't ask, maybe they asked me how old I was, maybe they didn't ask. So at that point, they took us to a central location, they cut our hair, they took away our clothes. The only thing remained our shoes and our belt. But I don't remember if I had a belt. Of course, I had shoes. And the striped uniforms they gave us, and we had to go to the disinfection. They had pumped some powder, chemicals, and a shower that was not much of a shower. And that evening we wind up in a barrack, maybe 600 people, an empty barrack, maybe half a dozen kids my age, and we were lost. Especially I was lost because some kids had a brother, an uncle, or a dad with them. I was alone. So the grown-ups, we asked them, what shall we do here? I mean, they suggested that we should tell the person who is in charge of the barrack that we made up a story, that we were lying, that we are old, and they should reunite us with our parents. This is being in Auschwitz, 2,000 feet away from the crematorium and the chimney. And we didn't know absolutely nothing, the grown-ups didn't know anything. So we went and we approached the person, and it was the evening time already, and the person, the barrack, where the guy was in charge, he took us to the door, and he pointed to the chimney. It was in the evening, and the chimney was in full blaze, and he told us, you don't have any more parents. They were eliminated within 2.5 hours from the time you arrived. It's hard to. So we didn't believe the story. It was an unbelievable story because he went through the process, the gassing. It was so fantastic that we didn't believe it. It took us 2 weeks to learn the whole process, to really absorb what was going on. So this was terrible hours and days. So I spent 3 days in that station, in that Birkenau. From there I was, it's a short distance to Auschwitz. And they lined us up, and I was tattooed. My tattoo number is A3913 on my left arm. It's fading away. And within 3 or 4 days, they got together 200 teenage boys for the age of 12 to 15, and they marched us off to a satellite camp of Auschwitz, not far away, maybe 6 or 7 miles, and that turned out to be a coal mining camp. And they had an empty barrack for us, for the kids, and we were assigned, luckily, not to work in the coal mine, because anybody that wound up working in a coal mine didn't last more than 8 to 10 weeks. And then they were exchanged with a new transport, because that was very, very, very hard work, very little food. So that was terrible conditions. But we were chosen to work in the civilian factory of the coal mine. When the coal comes up from the coal mine, it's not pure coal. It has to be, the stone has to be separated before it goes for the transport to the war effort, what it was you were using in the coal. So we were chosen, and we were assigned the conveyor belt before the coal shoots into the cattle cars under the factory to pick out all the that does not belong, the coal, stones and everything else. So that was a very lucky break. The first one that I ended up between the survivors. And this was a lucky break because it was a job inside the factory. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Should we go back to the other microphone? It was hearing a little crackling.
Yeah. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not used to phones. So, and that was a civilian-run factory, and we had our foreman was a Polish political prisoner, not a Jewish person, was a Gentile person, and he got very friendly with the kitchen staff, and he was able to get some extra food for us. So we were comparing to a lot of things what was going on in the camps. We had a lucky break, because if you saw Schindler's List, A lot of companies were very anxious to get slave labor for cheap. And here, because it was not surrounded with barbed wire, they figured the kid's not going to do any damage, not going to run away. So they chose, probably, maybe we were chosen to begin with for that particular job. So till today, we were trying to find in Yad Vashem some documentation, but we couldn't find nothing.
So you tried to look for this foreman who was a Polish political Christian prisoner who found extra food through his relationship with the kitchen to recognize his additional efforts to keep the Jewish slave laborers alive.
He was not. But later on, there were two other Gentile persons who were instrumental in saving our life. They both declared Hasidei Umot, as righteous Gentiles. And I was one of them, one of the witnesses also, because he also saved Rabbi Lau, who became the chief rabbi of Israel, who was 80 years old at that time.
Maybe Rabbi Guido can explain what the definition of a righteous Gentile is, and we'll continue the story.
These are people who are not Jewish and who played a key role in saving Jews during the Holocaust, and that's
risked their own lives.
Risked their lives without expecting anything in exchange, and that's the highest honor that the state of Israel can give to a person, is to give them the medal of the righteous among the nations. That's how we call them. Schindler is one of many. You may have heard about Raoul Wallenberg, for example, or others.
A lot of them. They got their honor, their families, because they passed away, because it took a long process for some, and...
Well, Rabbi Guido mentioned one of many. It's a relative term. There were many who helped in this way, there were many who were silent, and there were many who collaborated.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, Zoltan,
yes.
Going back to your childhood.
Yes.
The school you went to, was a school for Jews only, or Jews
No,
and
I had
non-Jews?
one-room cheder, one-room... I'm sorry. A one-room classroom from cheder, that was called a cheder, and you were there from the age of 4 when you start to learn alphabet, the ABC, the Hebrew ABC, until you were 13. It was a small village, only 55 Jewish families, so that's what they could afford.
So you didn't have non-Jewish friends?
I had Jewish friends because I went to public school.
No, but non-Jewish, Gentile
Not
friends.
yet. I had because I went to public school.
Oh.
So I met them in the schoolyard, in the class. Some we were friendly, but our teachers were very, very anti-Semitic. They wouldn't call us by our first name. They called us the Jew boy or the Jew girl. So they created, the teachers created the anti-Semitism.
And when the Nazis came, any of those friends did something to protect you, to defend you?
They even before the Nazis came, many times I had to fight my way home from public school. I wind up with bloody nose or cracked heads because I'm a fighter. I was always a fighter. I wasn't a weakling type of kid. I was a strong kid.
I want to make sure everyone hears that. He said he wasn't a weakling kind of kid, and many times coming home, he ended up having to fight his way home with a bloody nose. So these kids would just approach you because you were Jewish and attack you physically?
Yes.
When you were how old?
9, 10, 11.
So this was life in Hungary.
Yeah, that was day to day.
Before the Nazis, day to day.
That was day to day. Yeah.
So anything else about, so you're in the factory doing slave labor.
Yes.
And everything is relative. Your parents were.
At that time, we know the whole everything.
So was anyone alive from your family while
Later on,
but you didn't know at the time?
At that time, nothing. Later on, I find them. I don't know how much time you're giving me.
We're giving you all day.
Oh no.
So now you're in the coal mine factory with
Yes.
a civilian person.
Yeah, and everything goes day after day from middle of May till January 17th of 1945. The only time they stopped us, we marched out of the camp, which was 1.5 miles from the factory, 12 noon, and we returned 12 midnight.
So you're there about 6 months, 7, 8 months?
8 months.
8 months.
8 months.
So January 17th, 1945.
1945.
So what's the menu for those 8 months? What did you eat?
What we had, I don't know, 1,100 calories, so a very black coffee in the morning with a very little piece of black bread. And lunchtime, soup made out of turnips and shook beets or things like that. If you find a piece of horse meat in there, once in a while, that was a delicacy. And at night, another piece of bread with some marmalade, and that's it.
You lost weight?
I lost weight, but we had in the kitchen of the factory, we had fairly good food, leftover, not leftover, you know, but leftover after cooking, when everybody, the civilians got lunches and dinners before they went into the mine. So we ate fairly good, so that kept us in fairly good condition. And that came later on very handy, because the death march, we were able to keep up with the death march later on.
So January 17th, 8 months
Russian
after
army-
arriving to Auschwitz.
Yeah, I want to bring out something. The only time they stopped us from going to work, if somebody run away from the camp, and most of the time they were caught because they let the dogs loose and they couldn't go far, and that it was a big show of hanging.
A big show of hanging. So January 17th, someone tried to escape?
No, before it.
Before that, okay.
Before, yes. That happened
So
three
when-
times.
three times?
Three times within the 8 months. In the 8 months that we had to watch this, because the Germans were killing Jews by the millions, but if one of them ran away, that was the end of the world. They had to, you know, show an example, and it showed that was a big show. You know, have to march in front of the parties. It was terrible, terrible scene. Terrible.
March from the barracks.
Front of the, you know, the whole, everybody had to march in front of the.
So they would hang the
Yeah.
person who tried to escape after catching them, and then march all of the
Sometimes-
prisoners.
Yeah, and sometimes there were 3 or 4, not just one. So those were horrible, horrible experiences. And while in those 8 months, towards September, October, November, already the British and the American Air Force was bombing everything around all the factories, and that gave us already hope that maybe something is happening, because we didn't know exactly what's going on in the world. And so that gave us hope that we have made something. Sure enough, January 17th, the Russian army started to move. They already, you know, they beat the German army in Leningrad, and the American forces landed in Normandy on the west, the Russians from the east, and the German Nazi regime still decided to drive the slave labor further into Germany, and that was the death march. Why they called it death march? Because anybody that could not keep up, don't forget, this is January, middle of January in Poland, a very harsh winter, snow galore, freezing temperature, very skimpy clothes we had, shoes was already worn that we had from before. If your shoe was worn, you got wooden shoes. So it was terrible, terrible condition to walk on that march. And that's what happened. We marched approximately 4 days. 4 days. Luckily, some people marched as much as 30 days. So I don't know how many we started off with, but maybe 3,500 people in that camp, and how many of us made it. And we got to a railroad station. This time it was empty, open cattle cars. And they put us on open cattle cars, which was in a way lucky because it was snowing very heavily. And we had snow to nourish ourselves because I had no food. And we had snow, water.
You ate the snow.
I ate the snow, yes. We were able to gather the snow.
And after 3 or 4 days, I don't know exactly, we arrived to a train station in the middle of the woods, and we thought that's the end of it. You know, something is gonna very drastic happen here. And we arrived to the camp Buchenwald, which was a very notorious political prisoner camp, started in 1938, mostly with Gentile and Jewish political prisoners who were against the Nazi regime, but at that point we didn't know what that meant, Buchenwald, what it was. And they announced right away that we have to go through shower and disinfection. And we thought, here we go, Auschwitz again. We got very scared, and we were not in that good condition anymore. But we made friends, and we said goodbye to each other. Because we thought shower and, and disinfection, this is all over again, the process of elimination.
You thought you were going into a gas chamber?
Yeah, exactly, yes. Some of the boys who were older and they were more knowledgeable, they said the vidui.
So what is the vidui?
That.
I know what it is.
Yeah,
I want
okay,
you to tell
you
them.
explain, yeah.
Oh, me?
Yes, you explain.
These are confessional deathbed prayers. So these older boys who thought that the whole group was going into a gas chamber began to recite the prayers that are traditionally said by Jews, if they're able, before they are about to die.
Yes. And we entered the shower room, and to our surprise, hot water came and not gas. So we came alive, and the people who were working there, they had smiling faces, and they were handing us clean clothes, because our clothes was full of lice already, everything. And we were wondering, what is this? And the guys, they were German political prisoners, and they were smiling, and they told us that they didn't see kids for many years, and it reminds them of their own family that they left behind. And that was the underground, the political underground inside the camp, inside Buchenwald, because in the beginning, the German, fascist authorities, they put in charge the criminals of the inmates. And they were brutal, but they really wanted that everybody should be brutalized. But when they built the factories around, and they want to use that labor for effort, and these criminals were not capable only of brutality, but the political prisoners were highly intelligent and in all kind of different walks of life. And they gave them the authority to run the internal things of the camps. And they formed their own underground. They were helping each other to survive. And it was a wonderful group of people.
So how long were you in Buchenwald?
And Buchenwald arrived January 28th. And I was liberated April 11th, 1945. By the American forces, General Patton, of course Eisenhower, but before we were liberated, 7 days before, Buchenwald that time had 105,000 people in the camp. The German fascist authorities still decided to get them on a death march, drive them in deeper into Germany. And we were the Jewish kids in this barrack, and our barrack commander, who was a German communist, his name was Hamann Wilhelm. He told us, from now on, you are not Jews. We're going to give you insignias to sew on your garment, because everybody had The Polish nationals has a P, the Ukrainians had a U, LGBT people had a purple and a black triangle, not a triangle, and us Jews, we had Magen David, half yellow, half red, and the number next to it. So we had to take off those things. They gave us new insignias to sign up. From now on, you're not Jews, you're not going, because they announced on the main loudspeaker, all Jews step forward on the main assembly, and that night, 19,000 Jews were taken away from Buchenwald on that march.
So even when the Nazis knew that the end was near and that
Yes.
the Russians and the Americans were coming, they wanted to kill the Jews.
Still, a lot of them unfortunately got killed on the death march.
So you changed your clothes as and
Not the
pretended to be a
And
political
he's-
prisoner.
Yeah. And next time, morning when the roll call was, the SS officers came with the roll call, and he demanded that Jews should step forward. Nobody moved, because we respected that. And they was arguing, and he was holding on to his revolver. But anyway, they were nervous themselves already, because the Russian or the American forces were closing in. They were hoping that the Americans will close in, not the Russians,
Why?
because they know the reputation of the Russian forces and the
The
different...
Russians weren't taking prisoners like the Americans were.
They did not handle exactly the same way. And the humane conditions were much different, American forces and the Russian forces. So they were nervous, and they just took off and they left us. But the next 5 days,
They left you alone in the camp.
without
They escaped themselves,
No.
the SS.
they just took off and they never came back. And for 5 days after it, they were taking everybody on a death march. And this, our barrack commander kept us back and back and back. And on Wednesday, April 11th, 1945, we were lined up outside because our barrack was in line. They couldn't hold them back anymore. And we were in line to march out. And everybody was able to take a blanket, that's all. And all of a sudden, around 11 o'clock, I'm trying to, from Hebrew to the air raid sirens. The air raid sirens start to blaze. Everybody back to the barrack. Nobody should go to the window. And by 11 o'clock, we saw people sneaking around in rifles wrapped in blankets. So this underground had also, because they had ammunition factories all around, and they was assembling, they were able to assemble guns and smuggle it in and hide it under the barrack floor. But we didn't know about it, we just, And this was going on till 3:15. 3:15, the loudspeaker sounded that the camp is liberated. The first American tanks arrived. On the gate, things are very, very dangerous. They're still fighting around. Nobody should move. I know everybody's hungry, but we're trying to get food as soon as possible. But please stay in place. Nobody should move, because things are very, very dangerous. So we were waiting. By 5, 6 o'clock, we know that the electric is not, the wires are not electrified anymore.
You mean the fences that
The
were keeping you
fences.
in, the electricity was
So
down?
people cut the fence, and we were looking for food. Where are you going to find food? In the SS barracks, where the SS officers were their quarters. So some people find some canned goods left over, and they gorged themselves because they were very hungry. We, a bunch of kids, we were not lucky. We find a big box of biscuit.
Hold the microphone. Big
Yeah.
box of biscuit.
And that turned out to be the dog biscuit for the SS dogs. But it tasted very good. And this was a best blessing in disguise. Because anybody that gorged themselves with some other type of food, they got sick, and a lot of people died after the liberation from this, from
They
typhus.
died because they ate too much too quickly,
Ate
and
too quickly, and they got sick, and typhus and all these things was, and diseases were around in the camp to begin with. So a lot of people, unfortunately, lost their life after the liberation.
So Sultan, you're liberated, and I assume first thing you want to do is to find out what happened to your family, right?
No, at that time, I didn't know nothing what happened. Yeah, okay. So the American forces came next morning with the big trucks and
microphone. Just, no.
yeah.
I can hold it for you, Zoltan.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I am trying to, I'm a Jew. I've been talking with my hand, but so they showered us from. They didn't have much. They only had their daily rations, which had chewing gum, Hershey bars, all kind of biscuits. So anything that they had, they were. Still today, I love those Hershey bars, dark chocolate Hershey bars.
Zoltan, we're talking a lot about food.
Yes.
I want the students to understand the relationship between this
At
period
that
of
point,
suffering and
food.
what food was like for you, the starving.
It was, we were dreaming. I mean, we were hungry. We were dreaming about food. We were dreaming about things that we had as a kids' home for certain holidays or whatever it is. When you want to survive and you're hungry, what is it? That was a big...
It was hunger all the time.
Was hunger all the time, but except we were us kids who had that break with the civilian factory. But the adult who didn't have a job like that, they were constantly, and they were run-down condition. In 8-10 weeks, they came to run-down condition, and they took them back, and the new coup came, excuse me. So, by the liberation, 21,000 people remained in Buchenwald. From the 21,000, we were 904 kids in 2 different barracks. Barrack 66 in a small Jewish camp, which was a horrible, horrible condition. I was transferred to the main camp, which was Barrack 8, that turned out to be a dummy showcase for the Danish Red Cross.
So you were in a barrack that was 8, that was specifically made better because it was what they showed the Red Cross to give the impression that the whole camp was like
and the
that.
main camp had completely different conditions like the Jewish camp. The Jewish camp had small, they called it a small camp, and it was terrible conditions. Disease, and even the SS people didn't want to venture into that. It was already so. But I was lucky, again, a break. I was in a bigger camp because I was between the younger ones. So I wind up in that dummy. Once in a while, we got a package from Danish Red Cross. Most of the thing was taken by the German authorities, but once in a while, that thing happened. And so right away, between the American forces came a Jewish chaplain, Rabbi Herschel Schechter, who was a graduate of Yeshiva University, and he right away, I don't know, he was able to abandon his duties with the army, and he took right away, especially to the kids, to us. And that year, Pesach was before the liberation. On Pesach Sheni, he brought us matzot, that left over from the American forces. And he arranged, I think, Shavuot services together with American GIs, Jewish GIs. So it was a very, very, very wonderful
So even after liberation, you're still at the camp, but
Yeah.
it's being
2 months,
administrated
2 months.
for 2 months, administrated by the Americans and a chaplain, Rabbi Schachter, a famous chaplain who came to
a
that
lot of
camp.
attention to us, to kids, because we didn't know they were talking the adoption to Canada, adoption to Australia, you know, and some of the kids who were from Poland, they went through 4 years already, ghettos and camps, and they know they lost their loved ones, they know they lost them. They didn't want to go back there, but I just spent a year, and I was hoping that I have, you know, siblings left, so I was very anxious to go back to Hungary.
So did you go back to Hungary?
Yes.
Okay,
My
what did you find there?
Okay, I went back to Hungary. Our first transport went to Prague. Oh, by the way, 3 days after the liberation, President Roosevelt died. And General Patton, General Eisenhower came to the camp, and Edward Murrow, who was the very famous war correspondent of those days, there's everything you guys could find on YouTube, because everything is documented.
I think we have a picture of one of the Jewish worship services. I think it's at
That was on
Buchenwald.
a Shavuot.
Are you in that picture?
I probably,
Okay.
but I can see myself. It's, you know. So,
So
yeah, I
you go
had
back
to be there.
So you go back to Prague.
I got back to Prague. In Prague, we find already Jewish boys in the Czechoslovakian Free Army, and they were, you know, where you coming from, where you going, you know, everybody. So I find out that I have a sister that survived in Budapest, in that Raoul Wallenberg safe house. And
She was the only survivor, the one sister?
At that point,
you knew of?
yeah. And the only way to travel from Prague to Budapest on the top of the railroad, because it was full of refugees going in all directions by the. So we kids, we climbed on top of the railroad, and they made us sure you better duck when you get into a tunnel, you know, when the.
So like a James Bond movie or Mission Impossible, you're on the top of the
Listen, we
train
were
and you're
we were
14 years
We
old?
were too cocky and too brave. We thought we survived all this thing. We are infallible. We cannot be.
You were 14, right?
At that time, when I was liberated, I was 14.
Raise your hand if you're 14.
So you found your sister in Budapest?
Yes, I found my sister in Budapest, but she had no room for me. Her half of the apartment was bombed out, and she could. Her husband was not around. Was also lost.
Her husband was not around.
He was taken in 1942 already, and he was gone by that time, lost in the war. So on the railroad station, they advised me, listen, if you don't have a place where to go, they gave me an address. It was a home for Jewish orphans originally, and that was the place that was run by the Zionist youth movement, by the Shomer HaTzair, the Zionist youth movement. And here is the address. If you have no place to stay, you come. And sure enough, my sister took me there. I didn't know the address, because I remember my sister's address because I used to send packages to her. And I wind up right away in the Shomer HaTzair youth movement. And I felt home right away with kids my age. We were not that many kids to begin with, my age. And right away we had we started a new life. And I didn't know much about Zionism because I have a Hasidic family, was a taboo, that sort of discussion. And I started to learn about Zionism, and my sister encouraged me I should start to go to school, to have a profession, because I was not much of a student. I had a learning disability, I'm dyslexic, which I find out many many, many years later. So the best thing was to go to vocational high school, which was an ORT in Budapest, run by the ORT organization. And I spent 3 years, and later on, when my brother, who was Hasidic, he found me in the Shomer Sair, he pulled me and wound up in the Bnei Akiva.
So, just a little context coming from the Hasidic tradition, there was not as much passion for Zionism as they felt that God would one day just gift the Jewish people the reestablishment of the state. And Zionists believe that through our own efforts, political advocacy, settlement in the land, that we could recreate the state in a modern political fashion. So your brother finds you, he's still religious, and he says, come away from the Zionist house, come study in the yeshiva with me.
It was when I was in Camp Moshava in Hungary, 3 summers in a row. Camp
So
Moshava.
this is from age 14, 15, 16,
and 17.
and this is 1945, 1946, 1947, and then what happens?
In middle of 1948, because the British, we couldn't make an aliyah because the British was catching all the illegal boat. They're taking everybody to Cyprus.
So the British were in charge administering that area at the time,
And
and they
leave.
leave on May 14th, 1948. But so before that, you wanted to go to Israel, but you couldn't?
No.
Or you didn't
Because
want to?
I didn't want to go to a camp again. It was they were taking everybody to Cyprus.
So the British were stopping Jews from coming into
Yes,
Israel.
they're catching
and you
the
didn't want
boats on the Mediterranean. That was.
So what happens in middle of 1948? You are how
Yes,
old?
The communist.
It's 18. I can do math. 18.
Yeah, close to 18. They closed the borders to the west, so the Zionist underground movement had a way of going through Czechoslovakia from one communist country to other one, and then from there to the Vienna with the Bricha. This was an organized, I don't know where the Bricha was. That was the organized underground organization that was channeling people from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, eventually to Israel or to Canada or to United States. It was called the Bricha.
So tell us about, there's another big chapter in this story, and then we want to give the students an opportunity to ask you some questions. So how do you get from in 1948, I know you find yourself in Israel.
It took me 2 months, no passport, no other piece of paper, through Austria, Italy, southern Italy. One day at the end of October, a Turkish cattle boat pulled into Bari, the port, the name was Bari in southern Italy, and they put a big banner on it, and they gave it the name Eilat Haifa, and we got on that boat, and a week later we were in Haifa.
Northern Israel.
In Israel, in Haifa, northern Israel, the port of Haifa. Excuse me. And I was drafted because I was turning 18. Younger kids went to Aliyat Noar, to the kibbutzim, and I was close to 18 because my birthday is December, and I was drafted into the army. Sunday morning, the army trucks backed into the ramp, and I went straight. I didn't have a chance to kiss the Holy Land. Went straight into the army truck.
So Israel is in the middle of a war,
But
right?
That Israel always had that ceasefire.
Okay.
It was ceasefire.
But it was after May 14th.
Yeah, it was towards the end. It was already the Milchemet HaShichrur. I did not take part of it.
Ah, okay. So it was
I got into the
1949.
1940, at the end of 1948. Yeah, and the second ceasefire was already established by December. So I did not really take part. I wasn't trained in the War of Independence. So I went straight for basic training, for 2.5 months basic training. And after it, they started a school for the Israeli Air Force to beat young people who had some background in education, to train them to be support personnel for the Air Force. So I became they trained me as a technician.
Air Force technician.
an Air Force technician. I wound up in a machine shop making parts, and that became my profession.
So,
For how long did you serve for the IDF?
I was 2.5 years that time.
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
So, Zoltan, we want to give the students an opportunity to
Okay.
ask you some questions. If you can just summarize, you live in Israel for how long, and the rest of your
Okay.
family, and what happens, and then...
That's why I asked you how much time you have.
Yes.
I could have got it shorter. So I finished my service in Israel. I was the only one from my family, no family. You know, I changed my Hungarian name to Hebrew name, my Zoltan. My Hebrew name was Shaul. My father's name was Adolf. I changed my father's name to Yehuda. That was his Hebrew name. It was a very popular name, you know, in Austria-Hungary, Adolf.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah, okay. So I served and made a lot of friends. That's the only thing we had, friends, and the beaches were beautiful. So a single person, and finally I wind up after the army. I moved to Haifa. The suburb of Haifa is the industrial section, the Mifrats, and I got a good job as a tool and die maker. And a brother of my sister ran away from Hungary in 1956 when that revolution was, and made it to the United States. And I had a sister, two sisters who came straight from Germany to the United States. So 4 of my siblings were here in New York. And he kept writing me, please come for a visit, come, we are 4 of, we have families, we have children, we would love to see you. So I came to the United States for a short visit, I figured, and I'm still here.
Okay.
A year and a half later, I got married. I married a young lady who was also a Holocaust survivor from Czechoslovakia. She survived with forged Christian papers, and she was in a Catholic convent school for a year and a half. They had to bring her back to Judaism later on.
We heard a similar story like that last year. And you get married, children, grandchildren.
I have 2 sons, 4 grandchildren, and they are very, thank God, they had what I lost out on education, they made up for it, and they're doing very well. They both in the media, and eventually I went into my own business, which I failed a couple of times in the machine shop business. I failed. It wasn't exactly a Jewish type of a business. But anyway, I went into the window fashion business, vertical blinds and shades and motorized things, because as a technician, I was able to do that. And thank God, had a modest success. And I lost my first wife after after 44 years of marriage. I married my second wife, lasted 18 years. I lost her about 2 years ago, over 2 years. I became a snowbird, and I joined the Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, and that time it was wall-to-wall Holocaust survivors, right?
They remember those days, the gentleman behind you, for sure.
Yeah,
Wall to wall.
wall. And now we have to really find here and there some of us who are fortunate enough to be like me, to survive and be here and have a beautiful young people that I could tell my story.
Last question, and then we'll open it up
Okay.
and invite some of you to come line up to the
You
extent
can
that we have.
start lining up if you want.
Wha-
Those who have
This is the
questions.
microphone in the center, so just slowly and carefully and respectfully. Zoltan, why is it important for you to tell your story?
Because social media has so much distorted things between TikTok and what is the name, Instagram, and Mr. Musk X, what's it called, X network.
They
It's-
know better than all of us.
I imagine they know more about it than I do. I just happened to came across the article that we went to visit on Sunday, and I tried to pick up on it because I thought it was a
So,
good
so you
introduction.
want to speak to set the record straight?
What, me?
You want to tell your story to set the record straight?
Exactly. So any question that if I could answer, I'd be more than happy.
Let's take a breath. Give Zoltan a round of applause. I'll let Rabbi Guido manage the remainder of our session. We'll take as many questions as we can. I'm going to check on the sound. Rabbi Guido, you.
Introduce yourself and
My name is Ethan Shaul, and I'm a senior here at Don Sofer Aventura High School. I had the privilege of speaking to you earlier.
Yes.
I wanted to know, considering that you were in Israel after Milchemet HaShichrur, what was the attitude for a lot of the Holocaust survivors that just endured the years of painstaking just torture and brutality? What was their temperature like right after Milchemet HaShichrur, when they were threatened once again by members of the Arab League? Yeah, that would have helped.
Well, during the Milchemet HaShichrur, I was not taking part in it. Like I said, I just got that towards the end of it. But it was for Holocaust survivors, the ones who were young and energetic, in good health. They went in with full spirit and with all the
Commitment, love.
with love and commitment to do everything, because that was our hope. Because after the liberation, especially a young person like me, I didn't dwell, I had something to look forward to, something to hope for. So I didn't just dwell on the misery that happened, so I was something different because I was very, very young. Mature people who went through that and had families, wives and children that they lost them in Auschwitz, they had a very difficult time. They had a very, very difficult time to cope with it. But the younger ones who were single and they had no commitment, they really, with their full heart and their full attention to serve and to create that Jewish state as strong, as wonderful as possible. And it was very difficult times.
Were they scared that maybe the Holocaust would now repeat itself because of that?
At that time, we did not, listen, slowly, the buzzword, never again, was very comforting. Not in the beginning, the years, but later on, when we saw Israeli victories in 1967 and a rescue on Tembe, when they were rescuing the hostages in Tembe, when you realized what a beautiful force and how much power the Jews all of a sudden never had any power. They were all powerless, and all of a sudden you have somebody that protecting them and fighting for them. Something was very, very, very wonderful.
Thank you.
Mr. Weisfish.
Hi, my name is Aiden. I'm a junior at Don Sofer, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your story with us. And my question to you is, after all these years, did you ever go back to Auschwitz?
No, I was supposed to be in Auschwitz this spring, but I was back in Buchenwald for the 50th anniversary of the liberation. I took my whole family, and that was an experience by itself, and it was a very big celebration, and it was in the city of Weimar, because the camp was 4 kilometers from downtown Weimar, the most cultural city, and the National Theater, and the key speaker was Rabbi Lau. And let me try to he used the phrase to address the people. I didn't come here to forget, I came here to remember. and he got, you know, big ovation, and it was everybody there because at that gathering was prisoners from the Ukraine, from Russia who were in the camps, American POWs, Russian POWs. Was a big celebration, and I was happy to take part of it. And that part was East Germany, but they by that time they built a brand new Hilton. So we bunked in the Hilton, not in the barracks. So it was and my family and my sons, who are, like I said, they're in the media, and they were able to write articles about it. And I was very happy that we made that trip.
Thank you.
So, my name is Markocsis from Hungary, and I firstly just wanted to wish good, blessed, and long life. And my question is, what do you think? Why this disaster could happen in Hungary, and what role could Hungary play to avoid this?
I am sorry, I did not.
How did this disaster happen in
Yeah.
Hungary, and what role
Could Hungary play
could
to
Hungary
avoid
play
this?
to avoid this?
Yeah.
Geopolitical question for you, Zoltan.
Okay.
Maybe phrasing it as to what role did Hungary itself, we understand that the Holocaust was perpetrated by the Nazi regime in Germany, but he was asking about what role Hungary played in it and what could have been done to avoid Hungary having had participated in it in the way that it did.
Okay. Anti-Semitism in Hungary was there all the time, and any place in Czechoslovakia, Hungary, or not Czechoslovakia I don't want to mention that doesn't belong in that category. But the fascist government of Germany would not be able to accomplish the final solution of the Jewish people with all the local participation of every government.
Oh, okay.
They were very happy. They were very happy, some of the elements, not everybody, but they were very happy when they saw us in the village, marching through the village, being taken away. They were very, very happy. And the German, death squads wouldn't be able to accomplish their job without the local population.
Okay. And my other question is, do you still speak Hungarian?
What languages do you speak? Do you still speak Hungarian?
Yes, that's my mother tongue.
Oh, yeah, so jó
that's-
egészséget.
Hogy?
Jó egészséget.
Jó egészséget.
Köszönöm
Thank
szépen.
you. Köszönöm szépen. Okay.
What other languages do you speak?
Hungarian.
Hungarian,
Hungarian,
Yiddish,
some German,
German, Hebrew,
and English.
and English. That's all?
That's all.
My name is Daniela Koval. I am a senior at Donstaff Ventura High School and I'm 18 years old. It has been such an honor to come and hear your story and to speak to you. My question to you is that there are still various ethical issues today such as racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and obviously anti-Semitism. My question to you is, where exactly does anti-Semitism root from? What did Nazi Germany, why did Nazi Germany try to justify anti-Semitism in the first place, and how is it still justified today?
I don't know how they were able to justify it, because it's almost like a disease. There is no mask to wear against Jewish hatred. You know, it's in the air, and when there is conflict, which is plenty conflicts too in the world going on today, a lot of conflicts. It's always the easiest thing to blame the Jewish people. And the Jewish people, I don't want to use that phrase, the canary in the coal mine. So I've been to a coal mine. I know what it means, the canary. It starts with the Jews, and it never ends with the Jews. 6 million Jews perished, in the concentration camps, with that industrial death. 1 million non-Jews also perished in concentration camps. And they don't know the full estimates how many people died during World War II. Between 55 to 60 million people died during World War II, worldwide. That's including the Japanese. Yeah. And when it comes to refugees, there was 192 million refugees in the world since 1930. And there's only refugees in the world today is only Palestinian refugees. I just gave you an example that Czechoslovakia expelled 3.3 million ethnic Germans from the Sudetenland. There is no refugees today. So it's anti-Semitism and disguised, that Zionism causes it. It's a lot more to it. It's for years and years, and when there's trouble, when economical problems, it pops up to the surface. And I would never believe that in my lifetime I am gonna experience the upsurge in anti-Semitism in Europe and also in the United States.
I can recommend two good books on explaining the history of anti-Semitism, one by Barry Weiss and one by Deborah Lipstadt. We can maybe forward them onto your school, and if those who are interested in reading.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for asking.
Hi, my name is Joshua Bryan. I'm a senior at Dunsmore Ventura High School. I wanted to ask, since the Holocaust is one of the most tragic events in human history, through all of that, during and after, what moments do you say make you think life is beautiful?
I didn't hear the exact, I'm sorry.
What moments during
And after.
and
or-
after that inspire you to believe that life is beautiful?
Well, I really don't have too much complaints. First of all, I came to the United States, and I also have an immigrant story. And for me, coming from a background, hopelessness and big desperate, and to me, it is beautiful, and it could be beautiful for a lot of people. Unfortunately, sometimes we mess up our own lives, or sometimes circumstances are so that people don't have the luck or don't have. It's hard to explain, but I enjoy life till today. Thank God. I'm very saddened that I reached the day in October 7 that were more Jews killed in Israel in one day and butchered and brutally murdered since the Holocaust. And I'm not the same person since October the 7th. I'm very sad and try away to stay away. I'm reading a lot, but the pictures I don't want to see, and it's block out a lot of things. So I'm very, very unhappy about what's going on in Israel and the Jewish world, and the history of the Holocaust is documented and written, and it's still a lot of deniers with all the documentation and with all the witnesses that they have with the Spielberg Foundation, everything recorded. But this, what's going on, it's still in progress. It's not written yet. We don't know where it's going to wind up. It's definitely not going to stopping by the border of Gaza or Israel. It's non-stoppable if the Western world is not going to pull their act together. This is a worldwide terrible terrorist organization that hits the World Trade Center, hits the streets of Paris or London, the subways. So, and the easiest thing is to kill civilians. And then run into a bunker and yell for a ceasefire.
Sorry.
So we are going to limit the questions to one per student, and also let's not add more people to the line, because I know you have to go back to school eventually. Sorry to share the bad news, but I think the student with the white T-shirt is the last one, and let's not add more students to the line. Let's try to do one question per student. Okay.
Hi, I'm Rosina, a freshman at Don Sofer, and your story is really inspiring, and I just wanted to ask, during the time when you were at the concentration camps and stuff, what is it that kept you going and made you not want to give up on life?
That was very important to get going and hope that hopefully it's going to end. I cannot say that I was very much tuned into the traditional Jewish way of thinking, well, the Messiah's time will come and everything is going to be. I was not that thing left me very cold, very cold. But I was hoping in humanity a little bit, that eventually maybe it will stop and will come to an end, and thank God it came to an end. The American forces, and that time the Russian forces were also liberators, and it came to be. And because I was taken only 1 year, if it would lasted 3 or 4 years for me, like some Polish or Ukrainian Jewish kids that didn't survive, I may have not survived either. But I had a few lucky breaks, personally. But I didn't create breaks. You couldn't do no such a thing. Whatever was, you fell in. That's what happened. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michael Briskin, and I'm a senior at Don Sofer Aventura High School. My question for you is, what was the most emotionally challenging part of your journey from when everything started to where you are now?
I cannot tell you what emotionally. It was a roller coaster. Many times I didn't know where my next meal is coming from, or where I'm going to put my head down. But eventually I met my wife, and I started a family, and I became part of an extended large family, and it was very lovely. And I tell you the truth, I didn't go to sleep with the Holocaust, and I didn't wind up getting up in the morning for the Holocaust. First of all, I was very much had to make a living, and I didn't think of my emotional well-being that much. I had a commitment, and then I had a happy life. And my son, who is a journalist, and he wrote an article in the Chicago Tribune, the time of the Chicago Tribune, when we went back to the liberation of Buchenwald. In his article, he was quoting that my father was old enough to remember and young enough to forget. So a lot of things that I try to, keep out of my mind, and I was concentrating for beautiful life, children and grandchildren, which materialized, thank God, and that's what I was living. I did not dwell into my, I never saw a shrink in my life, so I don't know what to tell you.
He never saw a shrink in his life, so he doesn't know what to tell you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Liran. I'm a sophomore here at Don Sofer, and I want to say thank you so much for telling your story. It was absolutely amazing. My question is, after the Holocaust and your horrible experience, how has it been trying to find your family, and how long did it take?
About how long did it take to find your family, and how was it looking for your family after the liberation?
After, during?
After or during?
It took a while, I would say about 8 or 9 months after the liberation, because my brother was sick. He was in a hospital in Germany for 6 months, and my 2 sisters went to Sweden, and the Swedish government that time only took sick people to nurse them back to life, and the corresponding was not that great after the war. The Red Cross all of a sudden came alive. They were, you don't hear from them, but to publish the names who were liberated in certain camps, they were trying to publish. So it took time till we find, but it took about 8, 9 months after the liberation that we really connected, that we know where we are and how we are and that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
And if I may please ask, if I can ask one more question?
Yes.
Up until this point, through all your challenges, successes, and fears, what is your meaning of life?
What is the meaning?
What's the meaning of life?
Through all your successes, challenges, and fears, what would you say?
10 words or less?
What is the meaning of life?
If you
reach my age and you could still walk on the beach 4 miles a day, that's a happy.
I want to go for a walk with you. I don't know if I can do 4 miles. Can we do 2 miles?
Yeah.
All right, we'll plan it.
Okay.
2's my limit, though.
Hello, my name is Ori Blank. I'm a senior at Don Sofer Elementary High School, and first and foremost, I like to speak on everyone's behalf that we're all extremely grateful to have the opportunity to hear your story. And my question is, as you know, there's a growing increase of anti-Semitism today, especially with the October 7th attacks on Israel. And I'm asking, as someone who has been subjected to a lot of anti-Semitism during the Holocaust, what's the best way to combat modern-day anti-Semitism?
What's the best way to fight modern anti-Semitism?
Get off social media.
Thank you.
Learn history. Learn history.
Hello, my name is Yoav. I'm a senior at Don Sofer Aventura High School, and first off, I wanted to say thank you for sharing your story. And my question is, do you think due to the misuse of social media that the Holocaust could happen today?
Yes.
You do think so?
Yes. Because it's so extreme, and I don't know. I'm not on social media. I'm still tuned into CNN. How many you guys tune into CNN? No. You read what on the phone, right? Whatever the snippets, right? So even on CNN, here and there, you could see a straight story once in a while, you know. But I don't know what you see. But as I hear and what I know about social media, it's a lot of misinformation, history distorted to the extent my day in the beginning, not so much. I was an emotional roller coaster. How much I tuned into CNN and how much I heard from the river to the sea, Palestine is going to be free. And the journalist asked the lady, which river are you talking about? What's the difference, which river? She didn't know probably where Palestine was on the map to begin with. But the slogan carries from the college campuses, and you have to be chic, you want to belong to the group that is the in group, and you get carried away with this, you guys are ready for universities, and you have really some picking to do, which universities you're going to choose. Yeah. Hopefully you choose the right universities, and we know the things that were happening in Germany in the mid-30s or the late 30s, in the biggest universities, very similar things that's going on today.
Thank you so much.
My name is Andre Bentes. I'm 18. I'm a senior here at Don Sofer. And after living through the horrific events of the past and seeing what's going on today, do you still have any hope for the future? Do you think that we all as humans can come together and possibly achieve world peace sometime in the future? Or do you think that an evil force will always be there and we will never be able to achieve world peace?
I am very, very sad because I just came across an article this week that was talking about nuclear disasters, unfortunately. And it's very, very scary, the way things are going. Eastern Europe, the Middle East, the Far East, and some very dictators sitting on some buttons, and who knows? I am very, very scared, and very much concerned for the young generation that they're gonna have a very hard time to cope, and also what is the atmospheric, the weather, how should I say it? The climate also, and just all those bombs that going up into the air, what pollution that creates. Not even an atomic bomb, just the conventional rockets. How much that pollutes the air. So it's going to be a very, very, very tough. Humanity have to rethink what directions they want to go, and hopefully they will choose the right direction. But I'm very scared and I'm very much concerned.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Hello, my name is David Smith. I also go to Don Sofer and I'm a senior. I also wanted to thank you for sharing your story today. And I wanted to ask, during the barbaric times of the Holocaust, I'm sure that your friendships and relationships that you were able to make with who you were working with or who you shared barracks with were very helpful to get through those times. So I wanted to know if after the liberation days, were you able to keep contact with any of those people or still speak to them today?
Not too many are around, unfortunately, from my early years. And I had quite a lot of friends here in Miami Beach, and I lived in New York. And most of my friends, close friends, were mainly Israelis who lived in Israel. The Hebrew language kept us close. And how should I say it? I have younger, good acquaintances, personal friends for my age, not too many, unfortunately. Very, very few. Very, very few.
Thank you.
Let's give Zoltan a round of applause.
Thank you being here. Thank you very much for coming. And I hope I didn't want to go into very gory.
I think they turned off your microphone.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
You
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A few more closing remarks, including from Mr. Sofer. Please be seated, everyone.
As Rabbi Berkun mentioned earlier, we are honored to have here with us the visionary person that founded not only this synagogue but the city of Aventura, and that your school is named after him, and he just said that he wants to share a few words with you. So let's welcome Don Sofer to the podium.
welcome all you students that go to a school that's named after me. And the only thing that's ever been named after me was my grandfather. And my mother was the one who was against it because my father was her father, and she was not too happy about the family splitting up. I'd like to say that I hope that you students remember what your goal in life is. I was brought up in a still city. I don't know if any of you ever saw The Deer Hunter. It was a town of workers, steel workers, and it was quite a thing. I never saw the sun until I was 18 years old. And I lived in a town which was highly segregated. It was almost like if you would draw a map, it would be like a little Europe. I mean, I don't know how many times I was called a dirty Jew and how many times I had to fight my way home. And I know now my kids don't have the same kind of trouble to get to their normal life. And I was in a lot of fights. But then when I grew up and I started playing football, I wasn't in too many fights. The one thing that is important to me is you have to stand up for your rights. You cannot lay down and accept them. So the fact is that if you're going to act that way, you're going to get what you deserve. And you'll be punished really to the end of your life and your children. We shall not succumb to the evil that exists in this world and in America, which is more, it's closer to us than anything. I remember one incident where it kind of changed, was I was playing golf in Pebble Beach, which is a very high-end Gentile country club. I'm sure it was a tournament, and I was playing with Ray Floyd, who wasn't Jewish, but he didn't mind that. So I was playing in the tournament, and we arrived at Pebble Beach, and the doorman there was a very dressed up, white hair, Gentile person, a gentleman, and he was as Gentile as you could ever believe. So I said to myself, I had built Turnberry at the time, and I said to myself, I think at Turnberry it would be nice of us to have a doorman like that. And so I went up to the manager and I said, can't we have a doorman that looks very Gentile, is very nicely dressed, and someone that would be very oppressive? And what is it with you? It's my wife again. She's making hand signals. Usually she hits me with a loaf of bread. Okay. So anyway, so I went up to the manager and I said, so the door opens and this guy, and I said, I want a man like that. And he says, okay. The next day I come there, and there was a man who was dressed like that, had beautiful gray hair, and very, very gentlemanly and very Gentile looking. So I went down, and all of a sudden the door opens, and so, welcome to Thornberry. I said, well, I went to the manager. I said, what are you doing? I said, we're trying to make a sophisticated image, and then you're coming up with a typically Jewish band. So he says, I'm going to go down and fire him. I said, well, whatever. Anyway, I saw him, and he had the marks of from Dachau on his arm. What's that? Where'd he go? Oh, okay. I went. I saw the numbers on his arm, and I went and I said, "Just a second, you can't do that. We're not going to be the Nazis." And I said, "We're going to act like gentlemen, and we're going to do the right thing. And this man has been through enough." Now he became the running manager of Turnberry. He was the manager of every facility I ever had. So it was quite an accomplishment for me to be in that kind of position. So anyway, I'd like to make sure that you kids know where you're going and that no problem will ever be too much. When they told me I'd be crazy to build a city on 800 acres of swamp, I said, well, just watch me. And here. I really want to thank you very much, but it's all because of you, because I want you to be proud of me, of what I've done, and I want you to continue doing things that your parents will be proud of you, and your friends who you're sitting next to will also be proud of you. So congratulations, you're on your way to a wonderful life. Thank you.
This year marks the third year in a row that we host this event at ATJC, and we are looking forward to the fourth and the fifth and many, many years to come, learning together about the Holocaust. And this event is only possible because of the support of many people, and I want to welcome Dr. McKee to our Bima. This wouldn't be possible without you. I also want to acknowledge the two people that dreamt with me about this project at the very beginning, 3.5 years ago, the young light and Miss Shirley Cohen. It is thanks to you that we are hosting this event every year.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Cohen. It's an honor to be here. It's such a holy place. We always, when we enter, feel like we're in the presence of greatness, and we are. Rabbi Birkin, Rabbi Cohen, Mr. Sofer, so thankful to have you join us again. Mr. Landa as well. Congratulations on founding this beautiful place. But also in the presence of God. And I appreciate how reverent all of the students have been today. I will say, Mr. Sofer, one of the things you can be proud of is this sense of community that you established is so strong at our school. We have beautiful friendships among our students, and very rarely is there any sort of bullying, harassment, discrimination that goes unnoticed or unreported. We have students who take the role of being comforters by being friends to those who are mistreated. We have students who take the role of opposing any sort of mistreatment, being brave enough to take a stand, even if it may not seem to be a popular stand, to defend those who are being victimized. And we have students who've made that commitment literally to fight any sort of opposition like that. We appreciate it. And again, I feel like you are proud of us, I know, for so many accomplishments, but that's a great one. One of the other things so remarkable about this school and this community is a tremendous support we have from our parent volunteers, our governing board, school advisory board members who are here today. Also throughout the community, the parents that provide support to these students, and of course to all of you, thank you. Mr. Blau, thank you so much for the amazing presentation. It's so remarkable. As far as skills and education, there's nothing that we can provide that allows for the sharpness of your mind, recalling the dates and the people and the names. We have our honor roll celebration tomorrow. We're going to make sure and get you several honor roll items because you certainly deserve to be recognized for your brilliance. So thank you for that. I believe the greatest gift to you will be the fact that you've made such a powerful impact on these students. And what I'd like you to do, students, is if you have been impacted to the degree that you make a commitment throughout your life to making a stand against any sort of hatred or discrimination, I'd like you to please stand up, demonstrate right now physically that you're making a stand. You'll make that stand throughout your entire lives. Thank you, and we trust you will. We're going to hear right now from our student government president, who has a speech. He is also going to charge all of you with what you can do in the future to continue to honor the presentations today and the theme that you've lived all your life, Mr. Blau. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Cohen. I'm not quite to his height yet. I'm working on that, though. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. McKee and Rabbi Cohen, for the opportunity to present my hope for the future of this generation. Before I can shed some light on the future, I must thank Mr. Blau for having the courage to describe the dark past. Throughout the week, students our age and younger will be exposed to the darkest time in modern history. While they learn through ink, we have the privilege of understanding the Holocaust as recounted by one's heart. Mr. Shaul, you stand before us as living proof that good has and will continue to defeat evil. Against all odds, you stand before us here today, surviving an era in humanity dedicated to your extermination. That, in and of itself, is one of your greatest contributions to the Jewish community. It is, however, your devotion to keeping the stories and the memories alive that serves as your greatest contribution to the world. On behalf of the students of Don Sofer Aventura High School and the leaders of tomorrow, I thank you. For most of us in this room, this is not our first time recounting the story of the Holocaust. The class of 2024 has had the honor of learning the stories of 3 different survivors. Different in age, identity, and gender, but united under one tragedy. Mr. Saul, what makes you different from our previous speakers is that you have been exposed to not one, but 2 of the worst attacks against the Jewish people and the Jewish identity. For years, we were told to never forget, to speak out against hate, and to never be silent. Not even 100 years after the Holocaust, it is abundantly clear that Mr. Blau, we failed you. Miss Carl, we failed you. And Miss Sonnenschein, we failed you too. We failed to keep the memory of the Holocaust alive. We failed to speak up, and we failed to fight hate. October 7, 2023 was a wake-up call. It was a signal to my generation, a signal to tomorrow's lawyers, doctors, and politicians, that however thick our history books are, our tendency to repeat it has not dwindled. But as I stand here, gazing at the faces of tomorrow, my hope for this country, for this community, and for humanity remains steadfast. Within each and every one of your hearts, hands, and minds lies the ability to bring about real change in this world. It is, however, how you will bring about that change and for what purpose you shape the future that remains uncertain. Let the teachings of history and the words of Mr. Saul guide your path to discovering your purpose in this world. Let the principles of peace, integrity, and unity guide our journey out of the dark days and into the bright ones. And let our commitment and devotion to each other be the glue that holds our generation together. I look forward to the good days to come, and I know for a fact that together we are ready for the uncertain times. I thank you all for being here, and I really do hope that this time we will never forget.
I'd like to invite the members of the City Commission to come to the Bima, also Chief Bentolila, together with the 6 students that were honored with lighting the candles in memory of 6 million of our brothers and sisters who perished in the Shoah. Please stand if you're able. Let's remain silent. This is a moment of respect and reflection and memory. On behalf of the parents of the students of the Don Sofer Aventura High School, we invite Nira Ben Basat, Priti Belferman, and Jimal Bentes, who are going to present Zoltan with the present and a young light.
They've presented him with a mezuzah because they know he just moved into a brand new apartment, and we have plans to install it. So let's give your volunteer parents a round of applause and once again present it.
This will mark the conclusion of the event. As Zoltan told you, he commanded you to be active in social media. I want to strongly encourage you. I am sure that the first thing you're going to do after this event is over is to pull up your phones and to check your messages, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. Make sure today you post something about what you have learned from Zoltan. You are fighters in this war. You play a role in the war against hatred, against anti-Semitism, and in building a better world. And your phones are very, very powerful tools. So make sure you tag the school, you tag the synagogue, and let your friends, your family, everyone know that you have heard the testimony of Zoltan, and just like these candles who are going to continue burning forever, you are going to carry the torch and to share the light and the warmth and the fire of this courageous Holocaust survivor and fighter in the independence of the State of Israel. Thank you, Zoltan. Students will leave through that gate where Rabbi Berkun is standing, so that you can walk through our Holocaust Memorial Gallery and also see some of the pictures that, thanks to the generosity of the Consulate of the State of Israel, we have there an exhibit on October 7th. I think Rabbi Berkun is holding in his hand.
I'm holding one additional picture of the liberation of Buchenwald, a worship service led by Rabbi Schachter that Zoltan told us about. Zoltan is likely at this gathering. It's not clear if he's in this picture. Make sure you take a look at it as you are passing through the gallery, and Joseph continues to play the themed music for our event. Once again, thank you all for being with us, everyone.